the recent hubbub around Kanye's latest album, what with the white women of the world picking apart such innocuous lyrics as "Nigga Heil Hitler" for all the outrage porn they can gin up, I guess it's sort of a fortuitous time for me to introduce my own song, Pølar Unity. But that statement does require a little unpacking. Coming back to Ye for a moment, maybe somebody needs to explain to him that blacks were considered undesirables in the Third Reich and went to the camps right along with Jews, gypsies, and homosexuals. I'd like to think that this irony isn't lost on him and read the whole thing as an absurdist joke. And while that song probably is meant as a joke on some level, let's be honest. This guy was hardly probing the depths of the human experience in any of his music ever. And going off the rails with the anti-Semitism stuff just wasn't quite the catalyst to make me look at him afresh and say to myself, wow, this guy's so mentally competent and sophisticated that he's probably just riffing on it on a whole other level. Not to mention that his timing with this shit pretty much couldn't have been worse. We're living in a moment where people in the mainstream are finally waking up to the ways in which the concept of anti-Semitism has been weaponized to silence any criticism of Zionism or the central banking system, and hence to insulate psychopathic agendas, racism, colonialism, and class warfare from scrutiny and debate. Yet what has Kanye done? He went, shit, nuance of thought is for bitches, and played completely into this disastrous dynamic by going full hog into Jew-hating in public, giving the psychopaths who want to conflate truth-telling with anti-Semitism more fuel for the fire, or Holocaust if you prefer, of their hysterical narrative. But anyway, that part is just an aside. The point I'm getting at is that rap lyrics in general hardly represent the pinnacle of human thought. Country music might well have it beat on that front, but rap is by and large a profoundly anti-intellectual genre of music. And, in fact, it's gotten worse over time. People always floated the criticism that rappers were talentless, and ever since my early teens, I've been pushing back on this, saying, well, if it's so goddamn easy, why don't you do it? Why aren't you a hip-hop mogul raking in millions if it takes no talent? No talent is just your speed, isn't it? Because, of course, the people who say this are invariably people who have never tried to rap and wouldn't be able to do it to save their lives. And yet, I have a problem making this argument anymore because the hip-hop industry for the last 20-plus years has been undermining my ability to defend rap by leaning harder and harder into underscoring just how little effort, either intellectually or musically, they put into their songs. And that's where Pølar Unity comes in by way of counterpoint. If you're familiar with my music, you'll know I play around with many genres, and when it comes to vocals, I sing, I do spoken word, and on rare occasions I rap. In particular, Pølar Unity is my foray into a genre I call gloom-hop, which, admittedly, is just a term I made up to describe this song. Think gloom metal plus hip-hop. But it's a rap discussion of metaphysics. You see, part of the whole project in writing this song was to prove that not only can rap be actually about something, but it can be deep. So this should be a strong candidate for the most intellectual rap song you'll ever have listened to. And it's my answer to the Kanye Wests of the hip-hop industry, who've taken a musical style that ought to be vigorous and engaging and clever, even challenging, and turned it into something clownish and dumb. And I can hold out hope that this ethos will catch on, and perhaps we'll see a revitalization of the genre, and more rappers out there will find their way through to actually having a point somewhere in their music. I can dream, can't I? Anyway, that's been plenty of preamble, so let's get on with it. Here's Pølar Unity. The universe is a vastly infinite bit of nothingness, living in a nothing's little bit of space. The universe is a vastly infinite bit of nothingness, living in a nothing's little bit of space. The universe is a vastly infinite bit of nothingness, living in a nothing's little bit of space. The universe is a vastly infinite bit of nothingness, living in a nothing's little bit of space. You know, every projection is a self-portrait, and every perception is a distortion, 'cause the nature of experience is seriously non-Euclidean. We're talking about projective geometry, literally the confusion of opposites. Up is down, left is right, back is front, black is white. And so it is with the sacred and the profane. The two are one, son, to it it's insane to give credit to these crusades. From end to end of the spectrum, boy, are they beating on them war drums. They blind to the fundamental conundrum. To the dark you might try to fight, demarks the boundary of the light. Two sides of the same coin, each part of the polar pair exists by mutual contrast to impart and express a single essence, so it can manifest and project into the realm of duality. But to expect to suppress one polarity in preference of the next is tantamount to trying to shadow box to the death in reality. And yet the rest seem impressed with this futile quest, 'cause amongst the herd the word's absurd. Could it all just be a test? Indeed, who could have guessed that the conquest of the spectrum would breed obsolescence and a collapse in dimensionality? Any given dimension is an extrapolation living in the mind. So it is with space and time. We learn to assemble stimuli into a world where rules apply. But the nature of reality is a plasmoid singularity. Energy interacts with energy freely and chaotically in accordance with some identity. A law inscrutable and fundamental, ruling both great and small. But mentally we separate it all. We organize and we pigeonhole. We create a system of our own control, a contrivance of our own scheming. Then we look to the construct for meaning. It's our epistemological quandary. Each query holds its own reply reciprocally, and we continue to be perplexed, 'cause the framing of our prose is vexed. As a collective, we have a complex, a selective blindness. We won't inspect our perceptual bias and step to correct reflexive, idiocentric myopia, self-reference, paradigmatic fallacies and intransigence degenerate our sophistry into incoherence, demoting humanity as a direct consequence into supremely reverential irrelevance. Brace yourself for the deconstruction of all bleak materialist reduction, 'cause the mythos of objective reality becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And if by considering everything in an unconscious unliving, we subvert the spark of divine transcendence, which might assert and define human sentience. In the same way that black and white are the dual aspects of this thing called life, subject and object determine hence the two opposing facets of experience, i.e. the fundamental metaphysically, the thing we choose to call reality. Similarly, existence and non-existence could each only be at each other's expense. Yet to resolve the paradox in question comes an unorthodox superposition. being and non-being are imaginary states, whereas the truth occurs within the space. The flux spanning the gap between the two, and a shift in perspective means that you can't be defined by material, you're experiential. Intertwined with the ethereal, cause we're pure potential. The universe is a vastly infinite bit of nothingness, living in a nothing little bit of space.